Thanks for joining us on the John Mendola Show. We are driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers. Well, let's talk with Lackawanna Trail, University of Pittsburgh grad Keith Gavin, and now an assistant coach at the University of Virginia, recently in town for a free clinic at Wyoming Seminary. And Keith, boy, it's great to see you. I remember covering you in high school. You really made wrestling a great career for yourself.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to see you as well, and yeah, I've been pretty fortunate with the sport of wrestling.
Well, let's talk a little bit about heading from trail to the University of Pittsburgh, and by the end, you're a national champion.
Yeah, well, Lackawanna Trail, first of all, I mean, growing up wrestling in Pennsylvania is one of the best wrestling states in the country, you know, as far as youth and high school wrestling. So that was a great, you know, kind of learning experiences growing up in Northeast PA and wrestling. And, you know, I went to Lackawanna Trail in high school and I had some success. I didn't get, you know, obviously I wanted to be a state champ, but I fell short of that. And, I mean, my highest finish was third. I went on to Pitt and I was still very hungry, you know, to accomplish something, you know, major in the sport. And so, and I just kept working with my coaches and my teammates and just kind of, you know, figured it out and found what was going to work for me and what my reason was, like why I could win, you know, because I really believe everybody has something that, you know, they can exploit to help them win. And for me, I kind of figured it out in my third year of college, and in my senior year, I was a national champion, as you said.
Keith, how about your style as a wrestler? You know, you have a certain style, and I'm sure it's going to be well accepted there at the University of Virginia. But talk about when you're wrestling, guys. You know, people trying to get into you, and you don't let them.
Yeah. Well, I think my style is just kind of like what I was saying. Like, you kind of develop it based on what your strengths are, you know, or what your strengths and weaknesses are. So, you know, there's a lot of self-awareness that takes place, and I was very aware of the fact that I was never going to be the fastest or most explosive guy out there. You know, that's just not the way I was built. You always work, and you could always work on stuff like that, but just genetically, I'm just not built like that. So, but I realized that one of my strengths was I had a pretty good feel for the sport, as I say. You know, meaning that I was comfortable in a lot of different positions that most people aren't. And I just had a feel for it, figuring it out in there. And so I really just kind of got to the point where I was wrestling kind of unpredictable a little bit. You know, a lot of the guys I was wrestling in college wrestled the same way. You know, and I kind of took a little bit of an unpredictable approach and got up into positions where I was comfortable and that most people weren't. And I just kind of exploited that, and that was my style, I'd say. I really used my field to my advantage.
We'll talk about the U.S. National Freestyle Wrestling Team, ranked number one nationally, you know, getting involved in wrestling still at the highest levels. And, of course, you're shooting for 2016. Yeah,
well, I graduated in 2008, and originally my goal was to win the Olympics and be in the Olympic team and get an Olympic gold medal in 2012. There's world championships every year. That's not the Olympic year, so obviously you'd have to win a world gold as well. But that's the ultimate goal in wrestling, is Olympic champion. So that's what I wanted to do. 2012 came around, and I fell short of making the team. I was third in the third place in the Olympic trials in 2012. So at that point, I was kind of didn't know if I should keep going or not. You know, I was 20, 25, 26 years old, and so still young enough to do it, but you know, it was kind of up in the air whether I was going to keep going or not. And then just the way things kind of worked out, I just kept. I didn't really have a break, you know. So the Olympic trials happened. I was third, and then we were going to wrestle. USA was going to wrestle the World Cup like a month or two later, and then before the Olympics. And the guy that won my weight got hurt, and so he couldn't wrestle in the World Cup. He was just kind of heal up for the Olympics, obviously. And so the coach called me and asked if I could wrestle in the World Cup, and I did. And then since I didn't really have a break, I just kept going, and I was like, you know, why not keep wrestling? And then in 2013, I made the world team was my first time on the world team. I was on the national team every year, which is top 3 in the country. So if the number 1 guy is a world team member, or if it's Olympic year, the Olympic team member. And so, so 2013 I was on the world team, and then in 14 I was this past season I was second at the world team trial. So I was like, I'm getting older now, so it's not as easy to do, but I just kind of have to be smarter with my training, and I have a lot more on my plate now that I have a family and I have the job being the assistant coach at University of Virginia. So, I'm kind of playing it by ear, and hopefully in 2016 I'll be healthy and ready to go, and I'll make another run at it.
Keith Gavin from Lackawanna Trail, University of Pittsburgh, now the University of Virginia as an assistant coach. And Keith, you mentioned your wife and now your daughter. You have a family. I'm sure that's number 1 in your family, and in wrestling kind of is 1A or number 2 at this point. But tell us about how your family's doing.
Yeah, well, my family's doing great. I have an awesome wife, and we have I have a daughter that she's about to be 3 months old, so she's pretty new. But she's incredible, and it's just an amazing experience. And yeah, I mean, having a child really puts things in perspective. Everybody says it's a life-changing event, and it definitely is. I think with wrestling and probably with all sports, I would imagine that a lot of times athletes struggle with making wrestling your identity, kind of, or your sport your identity. So whether you win or lose is kind of what your self-worth is, which is not the right thing to do. But, you struggle with that because you put so much time into something, and then if you don't win, it's like, you feel pretty down on yourself, and winning's never fun. But, it should never be the number 1 thing in your life, and now that I have a daughter, it's, that part of it, that mental part of it, or whatever you want to call it, it becomes way easier because, she's just a constant reminder of what's the most important, thing in my life.
Keith, when you reflect back, and I know you talk about your high school coach, Keith Yutz, and of course, how about some buddies back in high school, or you got back here to Northeastern Pennsylvania with a clinic at a team that won the national championships on the prep level at Wyoming Seminary. I'm sure it was neat to come back home to Northeast PA.
Yeah, it was awesome. I haven't been home in a while. I haven't seen my parents in a little bit, and I was able to. I stayed at my parents' house the night at the clinic, and then I had to drive back early that morning to get back to Virginia. But yeah, it was great. When I was in high school, Wyoming Sem wasn't the powerhouse that they are now, so it's pretty cool to see what they've done. I'm just super impressed with Coach Green and everything that he's done there, and they really do have an amazing team.
How about your impact at the University of Virginia? Talk about, your expectation levels, and of course the head coach's expectation levels, and the type of wrestlers there you have for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, well, I've only been here for 3 months now, but I would like to think that I've had a positive impact on the guys. And we're in the preseason right now, so we haven't gotten into too much of our, in-season training. But so we've been doing a lot of strength training, conditioning, and skill work and things like that. But right now, me and the rest of the coaching staff feel very positive about this team, and we have guys that are really committed and dedicated to being the best they can be, and that's really all you can ask for. We have some real top-level guys on our team. Our 165-pounder is ranked, 1 or 2, depending on what polls you're looking at. And, we have some other guys that should be All-Americans by the end of the year. So we're very excited for this team and for the future and what they can do.
Well, Guy was pretty darn good back in the day, and he's still pretty darn good on the day today. Here we are in October. Keith Gavin from Lackawanna Trail to University of Pittsburgh, now at Virginia for the Cavaliers wrestling program. And Keith, we wish you well in your own wrestling career there, whether it's at Nationals, Worlds, the Olympics, wherever you're at, and of course the best to your family. We appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Keith Gavin here on the John Mendola Show. We are driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers.